It's Wednesday, December 29th, 2021. I don't receive phone calls into my phone, which I'm normally okay with, because I really, unless it's like something uber important, I really didn't need cell phone connection. Like a digitally tethered service to the numbers that I need, like to my children and to emergency service management if there's something that arises that I need to know about. That would be sufficient. So when the phone rang, normally nowadays when the phone rings, it's never my children. They don't even attempt to call. But there's some kind of robotic service that calls every now and again. It's really annoying. But again, I never know if it's important or not. I get a lot of something called, it says voicemail on like a tag on the front face of my phone painted on. Now I have something called a visual voicemail, but whatever's on that tagline says voicemail. I don't know if that's like an interrupter or a disruptor of something that I missed or wasn't connected purposely or not, I don't know. But it doesn't dump into a visual voicemail that I have access to through some app. And again, these are only the words. I'm not really technical. It's just what I see on the painted front version of my cell phone. Actually, I only have one phone, so. And so this gentleman called and just acknowledged that I was not alone, that what I was, whatever going through, was being looked into or was being something or other. And that I was important. And I thought that that was a really nice message, and so I'm very grateful and thankful. But just he asked a question about this 5G thing. If I thought that that's what was a cause of whatever I have going on. And I'm like, and I'm thinking in my naivety, because I don't really know what a 5G is. I mean, the humans have sold this conceptual theory of you need a 5G carrier to have cell phone service and push for the large network. I don't know what that means in large schematic of things. But in my naivety of sitting here being sick and being under skies outside that are in a fallout shelter, I'm a little more skeptical and hesitant for multiple method of anything. But I was losing, I had trouble communicating with this kind stranger. Whether I don't know the difference or how from inside my room where I'm making this journal in this time capsule of my personal experience being of body, of environment internal, and then environment external, and certain factors that are being are in the rotation or revolution of some sort of where I am being held. I mean, I didn't say this in this manner to him, but I'm elaborating now because I've spent some time after the phone call in quiet contemplation before I made my journal entry. And so I have trouble from the inside of here in my naivety of not knowing things, of the grandiose nature of what motivates evil elsewhere and the criminal children of everywhere. Sitting by myself, knowing that that's not my modus operandi, or that's not what motivates me. I don't want to be perceived as a criminal. I don't want to be perceived as someone who wants to hurt someone else. I don't want to ever be perceived as that, because it's not where I come from in the machine. I'm more a mechanic and fixing things. But at a 5G level, the humans say these words, like to my mother's level, Linda, 5G network. Then they say something about satellite company. Then there's something about internet provider. Then there was something that was FiOS. Then there was something cloud. I mean, all of these gimmicky words. Then there's the actual electric company and grid. Without the cable provider. And it's like, then there's now device monitoring where, like, it feels like everything comes with some kind of remote. I don't want to have 10 million remotes. I don't want to have things on remote. Then it comes with things like this that work on something. I mean, this is voice activated, but then there's things that interact on something called Bluetooth. I mean, on one scale of actuality, it's just these are possibility of enhanced weaponry, electric weaponry, because they're on some signaling system. But I don't know how this digitalis came about. I don't understand how it went from a clock with two hands, and only the somebody specials got the third hand on the stopwatch for special purpose. I don't know how we went from that to now there's no hands and it's all digital. That's what's really scary. So that's a frightening effect. So, and then I mentioned something about, he reminded, in conversation, he said something about the cat scratch with the schooling. Now the thing is that there's been a disruption in the school system in New York by demographic changeover only, from a light pigmentation of something in the Asiatic corridor to something darker in pigment from the Asiatic looking corridor. I don't know for certain if the substrate is something more Central American, South American, or actually Asiatic in its population and movement, migration. I really have no way of knowing for certain. But it is just a way of giving an umbrella visualization on what it's a sidestep. Just like, almost like, are you even going to notice that we changed and got a little darker? Yeah, no, I noticed. I mean, I know the kids' faces look pretty similar. Just pigment got a whole lot darker. I mean, like, you're not fooling anyone my problem's not with the kids attending the school necessarily, although now it is because now you've made like a substrate problem. But I already had an issue I needed to work on, being the education system is horrible. I don't want to have to now reconstruct everything under some new demographic because they're going to get all mad thinking that I'm talking about them and polluting the air disrespectfully, because it's not the case. The system was already under attack before these new problems arrived, and that's what I see them as. Um, so, because these are all like partial problems that just keep getting worse and worse. So anyway, so in that I was reminded in divine memory, recall, about Benjamin, and I said to the gentleman caller, I said on the phone, I said, my son Benjamin, when we moved to Virginia, what I was really, really excited about with moving out of state New York, because I went to school here and it did not work out well for me. When I moved to Virginia, and we did a tour before we moved, they sold us on the school that for someone in Benjamin's exact classman year, he would start in the elementary school, but they were introducing these features, like everybody would have to attend like dance class and art classes and be introduced to culture through those channels. And then by high school, and they will have been exposed to each area of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And then by the time they hit ninth grade, they'd have a gear and a guideline with like-minded individuals to choose which area of STEM they wanted to focus on. So they had like a course to head for career development. That is what I was so excited about the state of Virginia and moving there, along with the beautiful people of Hampton Park, which was the development that I was in Chesterfield, or Midlothian. I don't know what the difference is. Problem was, I couldn't afford to live there by myself. I didn't have work. I didn't have subsidy. I wouldn't even know where to ask for such things. I didn't even know to reach out and if there, programs and things. Again, I I need guidance. So what I was living there alone with the kids, just being a mom. And that's when I got pregnant with Alexander. But then moving back to New York, again, Benjamin did not have any of those wonderful things that Virginia was offering, being in the New York public schools. There was no culture and music and theater and alternate possibilities for them to have a broad experience, a broad human experience, instead of such a narrow, isolated whatever. So he missed out on that. He's still struggling with career because there's really nothing here. Dan luckily had trade school. He found his way to veterinary school, which was good for trade school. I don't know what Alexander's going to do. I mean, again, I asked him if he's got guidance, like which way does he want to go. He doesn't even know how to answer. But again, that's what I mean, I didn't even have anybody asking me. Like Lou and Linda weren't talking about college, weren't talking about anything. There was no philanthropists knocking on my door saying, hey, why don't you come study abroad? I think you'd be really good for... None of that happened in my life frame. which are just contributing factors to where I am in this horrific situation. Um, but that's the difference between New York State and Virginia. Virginia at least had a plan for the kids, and they were in phase rollouts of systems, but they had at least plans for the kids to introduce them to a broad range of things. Whereas New York still, it's like they throw subject matter at the kids. None of it makes sense. None of it's important. None of it's career oriented. And none of it's interesting. It doesn't stick. I can't remember what I did in school for the most part. My kids, if you ask them what they've done from kindergarten until now, they can't tell you. They got no clue. It was nothing. It was just a filler in time to waste their lives down and have no point, and then have no career possibility. I mean, it's a horrible way of living or being within some human population. And that's what I said with Cat Scratch. He's the youngest out of all of them, and now it's been a 20-year roll-out phase plan, and it's still missed its mark completely, because it's the same school that I was in 1984 or 85, I think, and 83, 84, 85, somewhere around there. And the school has gotten nowhere. All it has done was introduced complete population change from I don't know where in the world, but the curriculum is still just as placid and useless and a complete waste of time for everybody that enters those doors. What's needed is some kind of arc intervention of here's where your child needs to be in the future to have a life, a career, a family, and be self-sustaining. I haven't even been able to get that level of simplicity in child planning, genetic counseling, and help within society, within the state of New York, since my children were born. Virginia had a very different system. I only entered it briefly, but they were fantastic, and it was like a totally different world down there. And my son Benjamin and I cried when we were told that we had to. Well, when we were told we had to go back to New York because we had to sell the house. It was horrible. But here we are. So, on this time capsule that I'm doing for my benefit, for my children's benefit, in marking space and time in a succession, and watching over my health as it fluctuates, and as the environment outside my door fluctuates, and the interior environment of this particular housing unit is documented with the services that Lewis and Linda have, and that I'm being housed within, for a layover, multiple approach of explaining a very difficult to understand situation. I thank whoever it was today for reaching out. It was a simple method. It was just nice to hear that somebody cared about me, somebody cared about what I had to say, and that it was being acknowledged. That's all. So thank you for that. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.